here from Fantasy Grounds forums with the first of a series of videos on creature automation for Pathfinder 2 and Fantasy Grounds. What I hope to do here is help bridge the gap in knowledge of how to use the very powerful tools available to us in PF2. So if you're wanting to get your hands a little dirty and dive into creature automation itself, or maybe you just want to understand what goes on behind the curtain, I hope this video will help accomplish that. As with all things in the rule set as young as Pathfinder 2, this is a work in progress, so any and all feedback is welcome. For this tutorial, I'm going to tackle the biggest and most impactful use of the automation system, the effects function. As anyone who's a fan of PF2 knows, there are plenty of effects that augment gameplay. The ease and proper use of these features add tremendous depth and interaction to most gameplay sessions. Knowing how to use effects efficiently can really enhance any session, and having them automated makes this process so much easier. Initially, though, it's a good idea to be familiar with the effects themselves. There is a work-in-progress wiki page for Pathfinder 2 on Fantasy Grounds, which will be included in the comments section after the video. When you're ready to craft your own creatures and automate its powers and abilities, that page will prove to be an invaluable document. With all that said, let's dive into effects. It's a big subject, and I won't be covering it all, or all of its uses at least here, but knowing how to craft the format for applying the effects will open up many doors to automation. So that's the goal here. So in crafting creatures for the bestiary, the first one as it is right now, the automation process is mostly hands-on deal. So you have to kind of get in there and really start digging around to see what it could be used. There's a little too much variation in the wording and formats for creatures to allow it to just be a simple sweep through, grab and automate automatically, to be slightly redundant. So we have to get in and put in the information ourselves to make sure that it's accurate and it's doing exactly what we want. So in this case, what I'm going to do is take a look at one of the creatures I have already put in the game, and that's the Bloodseeker. One of the reasons I'm picking this up because I realized there was one thing that I haven't put in automation yet out on the server that could be useful in the gameplay itself. So with a Bloodseeker, as some of us old schoolers remember, was the old Sturge with its proboscis that just kind of attaches onto people. Whether you're gardening or stomping through a dungeon, it's not normally something you want to see too often. Being able to handle the way it affects things in combat certainly will make things easier. So I'm going to take it from the bestiary page where I've set it up for the level -1 creatures, drag it onto the combat tracker because of course we can't edit things directly from the modules itself. But this allows us to then go into the Bloodseeker itself and open it up and look at what's inside the creature and how the automation was put into play. Another option would be to take this and just sort of drag it onto the bestiary itself again, which will then create a copy that you can edit at will. It'll stay there, unlike this one, because when I delete this off the combat tracker, this version of it will disappear. But for now, since we want to take a look at how these automations are affecting gameplay, I'm going to use it here. So when we change things, we could see them actively applied inside the combat tracker itself, or most of the automation is applied. So as you go through here, you'll see all the usual things, including its barbed leg attack. With the effect instead of damage that you normally get with most creature attacks, called attach. Down here is what attach does. This has a whole bunch, has a long string of text explaining that if it's a creature larger than itself, it can affix itself to the creature and then begin the process of doing the blood drain, which is another effect that's been automated in the game. So we're going to take a look at this. So when the creature has hit somebody, and in this case we're just going to assume it hit poor Larissa here, and setting her up as a target so it'll make it easier to apply all these effects. we'll start to look at what we want to accomplish. So the creature's hit her with its barbed leg, and now it wants to cling on to her. So for this, what I decided to do is have first an effect that just as an indicator, a reminder that this is going on with her. It doesn't have any in-game effects as far as you know, changing any of the numbers or anything, but often you want to have effects that show some sort of action that's happening to the actors in question. So for this, up here, we could see that the barbed legs attached to the creature that the attach is being performed on. So for that, I went down here and captured that particular text. So you use quotes and the text that you want to highlight as being relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. In this case, it's barbed legs attach. And then there's the vertical line or V line that separates what you're capturing and what the next functions is. And in this case, we're just going to do effect. Now for effect, you just type in, as you'll see in the document that Trenlo provided us, you just type in effect, capital E, FF, ECT. Hopefully I didn't get too confused. But you just put an effect with a colon thereafter. Everything after that will then be applying the normal rules for effects. So text that doesn't have any translation, like in this case, I want to just say that this Bloodseeker is attached, are just applied, and it leaves sort of a reminder in the effects tab up here. So I'm going to just double click that to show what this process worked like for the Bloodseeker. So in double clicking that, we'll then go up here and see that it has applied an effect to Larissa Ravensong called Bloodseeker Attached. So this will always be here until the DM decides that something has changed and wants to delete it out, which can be done very quickly with a little circles, red circle slash or V bar to get rid of it if that has been removed in some capacity. So that's a quick example of that. So she's been attached to. The next thing that happens in this, we'll see the Bloodseeker is flat-footed while attached. This is to indicate that obviously it's clinging to the creature and it's no longer very mobile. This has a self flag. Again, you'll see all these uses of the effects abilities in the wiki. And that just indicates that when you double click on this, instead of going to the target, it goes to the creature that is the actor in this case, so the Bloodseeker. So tapping that, now this Bloodseeker's now flat-footed. If Larissa was to attack it, it would show a defensive effect of a -2, meaning that it's not nearly as mobile as it normally would be and easier to hit. And of course, this is also important for any creatures that might have bonus to precision damages and stuff to come against flat-footed creatures. So that's just a simple use of this based on that. Now what I did notice when I was looking at this, that if the creature, the Bloodseeker is killed or pulled away while attached to the creature, it should also then add a bleed effect to the target that it has been ripped from. I had not caught this when I first set this up for the Bloodseeker, and I will definitely be adding it here soon. But for now, let's just show how we would put that in. So we have a new line here. These all have to be separated by carriage returns to show that they're different entries. If anything goes wrong, you can just kind of go through and check it out, stretch this out a little bit longer to make sure you have each of these on a separate line, because each of these effects will, or at least any of the automation, not just effects, need to be separated apart. So for this, what I want to do is come up here and see that I want to add this persistent bleed damage to this creature's automation. So first thing is I'm coming up here and I'm capturing what I want to highlight, as this is what I'm trying to accomplish. The truth of the matter is, if you do the effects right, you don't actually need to have this highlighted field. The effects ability, as long as it's written correctly, even without the front end showing what it's done, will work through. But sometimes it's nice to know what it's highlighting, and you could see what was supposed to be generating this. So I start with a quote, 1 persistent bleed damage, that's what I'm capturing, and the vertical bar to show a separation to where the code is going to begin to apply that effect. So again, we start with the effect thing. So put in effect with a colon, and then everything after this is going to be what you're trying to accomplish as an effect. In this case, we want persistent damage, which is PRS capitalized with a colon. You'll find all this information on the wiki. That says that what's going to be applied to this creature is persistent damage. In this case, since it's only one persistent bleed, we just have to put in a simple number 1 followed by a space bleed, and that will let us know that it's going to be applying the effect of persistent 1 bleed. It doesn't obviously get self because it's being applied to the creature that will be bleeding after the thing is ripped away. This could be used for the persistent acids. You'll see that on other creatures for numeric ranges like 1d6. Applies all the bonuses. It's really very powerful way to get persistent damage into the game. And when I tab out of here, we'll see that it now has added up here an effect on the combat tracker to show that we now have a new option to automate, and that is to click on the persistent 1 bleed. Up here you'll see the area where I had captured to show this is what I was looking to apply. Now when we click on this, it'll now add a persistent bleed to Larissa. So let's say we pop up and pretend it's her turn. One of the Bloodseekers she had been fighting had been ripped off. She's now bleeding. When her turn would end, we would get the normal bleed effect action on her, which would end on a 15 or higher, which she did manage to get at that stage. If I go down here and try to scroll, I'm not getting the scroll, but you'll see that she did take 1 persistent bleed damage over here, applying that effect to her. And as we've already have the automation, which is awesome for persistent damages and their automatically ending aspect, that went away when her turn ended and she made the flat check. So there you have it, a quick and easy way of adding an automated effect that now, and every time, if this had been, let's say, the copy, or if I wanted to just drag this same one over here multiple times, every new creature that would come in now suddenly has the new effect, automated effect. So as you're going through, you can apply these to the different targets. Just because I'm here, before I finish up this quick little one, I'll take a peek at the other thing in here, which was the blood drain one. So in this, you have the Bloodseekers attached. It's picking on poor little Larissa. She manages to shake off the bleeding effect of the first one that clung to her, but now she's got another one sucking away. So in this case, we'll look at the blood drain power. It's attached. It's going at it. It still has an action left, so it's going to go ahead and do the blood drain. In this case, we're seeing some different powers. I will get in, further in a different video about damage and heal, which we could see in here. But in this case, I just want to show how the effect of drain is being used. Again, we just come down here. We notice that in blood drain, when a creature that has had its blood drained at all, it has a drained 1 condition that is applied to it until it receives any healing of any kind. So we've highlighted that, set up an effect down here with a quote drained 1, the vertical line, the effect, and drained 1. So when we're in game, to simply add that, you would come down here, hit drained 1 to her, and then suddenly she has the drained 1 condition. Now drain's a little bit more complicated, requires some extra efforts, but that's more of a Pathfinder 2 thing as opposed to anything with automation. But that's basically it. There are just literally tons of things. I use effects for marking stages, keeping track of durations on poisons and diseases. It applies really well there. We know for things like hunt prey, just as carries, but there's just tons of effects in Pathfinder. And all of these, which often are involved in some powers, can be used and applied simply by setting up an automation to put in your frightened, your grabbed, your petrified. And it is pretty replete throughout all of this. I've even gone and started to add things like the grabbed features that come with some creatures, like this zombie shambler. On its attack, it does a grab, which is a one action power that allows you to automatically grab. And using the effects tab, you can see that not only can you set it up to grab somebody, but I've included the escape DC for the characters that are being grabbed in case they want to try to make an effort to escape from that particular condition. So with that, I think we have a good, quick, hopefully uh, informational video that'll allow you to get started in trying to create your own automated effects. And I will address things like attacks, damage, and versus DC skill checks and other features when I get going into future recording. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to make comments, and I will reply to anything else you might want to know that I didn't cover here. Thank you.